Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here. So in today's video, we are going to do this thread stitching on effect, right? Using basic Cinema 4D mograph and stuff. So if you can see here, it's just some thread sort of trying to stitch on, like you're sewing something, right? And if you've watched my last video which I posted, you can see it follows the same tangent. So actually working on something, and I keep figuring out. So the last time I did this was it was about cloth forming using this kind of threads, right, in Cinema 4D and Redshift that I use. And from there, like, I'm actually working on something and I'm figuring out to do stuff like this. So we are going to see how we will do this thread writing on, sewing on effect, kind of, right? And even after here, you can actually see how you can use the same stuff to write on something like a text, right? To use the stitching on effect on a text to get this kind of effect, right? So let's actually get into Cinema 4D and see how we will do something like this. So I'm in Cinema 4D and I'm using Cinema 4D R26, but everything I'm going to talk about, you should be able to do it in almost every Cinema 4D version, at least from R20 upwards. So let's first go ahead and create our thread. So I'll come into my splines and I'll choose an arc. So we are going to use the arc to create our thread, right? And you can see in the arc down here, we have the start angle, so we can animate the start angle. So I'll set the A. We are actually going to animate the end angle, but I'll set the start angle to, like, say, -5, right? And now let's start animating our end angle. So at frame 0, we'll set our end angle to -5 as well, so that there will be nothing from frame 0. Set a keyframe, and at frame 10, increase it to like 185 in fact, and set a keyframe. So what's doing is that if I go into the front view, you can see it draws on, but it intersects a bit, and that's what I want. So we have our first keyframe. If I hit play, you can see it comes on, but when the thing draws on, we want it to scale down, right? So I'll select the arc, come to its coordinates, and in the Y, I'll set a keyframe on the scale Y. So I'll set a keyframe here at frame 9, and to frame like 21 at frame 20. I'll set it to, like, say, 0.2. And now if I hit play, we have our basic animation. This is what's going to control the rest of our sewing on. You can later go in and adjust the animation and make it the way you feel like you want it, right? But for now, let's assume this is fine. Let's go ahead and create our clone. So I'll come into my mograph menu here and I'll create a clone. You can create it from here as well. I'll make the arc a child of the clone, right? And you can see it's created this. Let's actually play it a bit. You can see it creates this grid for us, right? If I actually go into the arc, I think the arc is too big, right? So let's make the arc, the radius of the arc, like 10. And now, yeah, it's fine. And if I hit play, can see it's created this grid, but we don't want a grid, so I'll select the clone, change the mode from grid to linear, and it's the linear. It's giving us 3 splines going up. I want it to go on the X, so I'll set the Y in the cloner from 50 to 0, and now in the object tab, I'll set the X to maybe 21 minus 21. So now we can see we have 3 clones. Let's increase the count to maybe something like 15. And if I hit play, you can see everything comes on. But one thing is happening. Everything plays, but it doesn't scale down. And that's because the reset coordinates is checked. So if we uncheck it, now if we have anything concerning scale rotation in our object, it will actually work. It will animate. So now if I hit play, I see now it scales down. So we are good, right? Now everything is playing at the same time, but we want to use our own effector or field to control it when it should come on and everything. So I'll select the cloner, come to its transform tab, and you can see in the animation mode it's set to play. We change it from play to fix. I have a tutorial that explains everything about the cloner, including this part, the animation mode, and you can watch that later to understand how all of this works, right? So if I hit play, now it's because it's set to fix, nothing is happening. So we are going to use Effector to control it. So I'll select the clone, come to my mograph effectors, and I'll choose the plane effector. I'm going to use the plane effector, and come in the plane effector. We come to its parameters. We don't want to affect position. We want to affect the time offset. And remember, in the arc, the animation that we did is start from frame 0 to frame 20. So that's 21 frames. So I'll select the plane, come to the time offsets, right, and I'll set the time offset to 21 frames. In fact, if I start moving it, you can see it animates on, right, but I'll set it to 21 frame. And now if we go back, even if you hit play, still nothing will happen. We need Effector to actually control it's how it should come on. So now that we set it 21 frames, we go to the Effector fields, and now you choose linear field, and you can see now if I select it and move it, you can see it's coming on and going off. I actually don't like the work plane in my scene when I'm working, so I come into my filters, uncheck work plane, and now I select linear field again, and see everything is coming on, but it's all coming on too quick. So I'll scale it down. So I'll select the scale to make this one small a bit, to the point where, so if I select the linear field, I want it when this one draws on and it's scaling down, then this one comes on. I think it comes on too quick. So let's make this linear field a bit smaller, right? And now if I move it, when it's scaling down, let's even make it a little bit more smaller. When like this one is scaling down, the arc is scaling down, then the other one comes on like that. Yeah, you can actually later go in and adjust your animation to however you want it and everything, but then in this case I'm fine with it. So next, let's actually go ahead and give it a geometry. So I'll come into my objects and I'll create a connect object. I'll make a clone child of the connect object, so that it ceases at one spline, not several splines. Then I'll select the connect object and make sure world is unchecked, so that it doesn't world the points of our splines when they are too close. Right, now let's go in our object again and create a sweep neb, make the connect a child of the sweep, and to give it a profile we use a circle. So I'll select a circle, reduce the radius of the circle to like 1, and make it a child of the sweep, but make sure it comes before the connect object under the sweep, right? And that's going to be the profile. I think the 1 is too big, so let's make it like say 0.6 for now. You can actually adjust it to however you want it. And now if we select our linear field and move it, you can see it's coming on. So let's animate it. So at frame 0, I'll bring my linear field somewhere here. I'll set a keyframe where there's nothing, and let's increase our number of frames to like say 300, and maybe at frame 270 I'll move my linear field so that everything comes on. Yeah, and now if you hit play, and see comes on, and we have everything set. So I can go ahead and select this field, and I'll actually hide it, the linear field. I don't want to see it. Right, so now you can see comes on, and it comes on, and it comes on. So let's go ahead and create the object that it's going to stitch or interact with. So I'll create a plane. I'll come into my object and I'll create a plane, and this is going to be the object it's going to stitch on, right? Let's make sure everything is drawn on. Let me move the plane somewhere here, and I'll make the plane a little bit smaller like that. Let's assume this is the object that you are going to stitch on, and then let's actually change the display to something like garage shading with lines. And because we want our spline or our thread to be interacting with the plane, we need enough segments, right? So I'll select the plane, come into its object tab, and I'll increase the segment to like 100. In fact, I'll increase it a bit more to like 150 by 150. Right, let's assume we are fine for now. And now I think it's a lot of segments, but for now we are good, right? And now how do we get it to interact with our plane? It's as simple as just using, like, because we want it to interact, you can either use the collision deformer, we can use the displaced deformer, but I prefer to use the plane effector, right? So I'll select our plane, I'll name it cloth, so that I'll select this plane, and then I'll come into my effectors, right? Hold shift, and I'll create a plane effector. You can see automatically the plane effector becomes a child of the plane, right? So we are going to use the plane effector as a deformer. And if you don't know, you can actually use your effectors, all the effectors, as deformers. So with the plane selected, I'll come into my deformer tab, and I can see the deformation is set to off. If I set it to any of these, see what happens. I'll set it to like polygon, and you can see it's disappeared. That's because it's moved our plane, you know, on the side 100 centimeters. If I come to the plane and come to its parameters, you can see it's moving it. So let's change the transform space to effector, and now let's set it to 0 for now, and see it's now back. So we want it to move the RC to move it down, right? So let's set it to maybe -1 for now, and see how it goes, right? And now it's moving the whole thing down, right? The plane effector is moving the whole thing down, but I want it to just affect in here wherever the spline is, right? So all what you have to do is in the fields, we come into the fields, and we are going to use the spline disconnect to control the fields. So we can simply drag and drop in this connect, but I would want to create another connect object. So I'll select this, hold control, and drag it down, right? And now I'll select the plane effector, and this is what we are going to use to deform our cloth. So I'll drag and drop it in here. I'll choose spline, and you can see something is happening to our geometry, right? So I'll select the connect in here in our field. I'll change the distance mode from along to radius, and you can see now it has changed. And the reason why it's like it's that big is, you know, the radius is quite big, so I'll reduce it to like 1, and I can see it's affecting only just the ones closer to our spline, right? And everything is cool for now. So what else do we do? I think the segments for now, let's say the segments are fine for now. And the reason why I'm using the connect object is that, you see, I want it also to affect the ones in the middle, but it's not, the second connect, it's not affecting the ones in the middle. And that means it's because the splines here are not getting closer enough to the polygons. So with that, I'll come into the second connect that we created, the cloner, and I'll come into the transform mode, and let me actually scale it. The transform, scale it down a little bit. You can see it's affecting it. I hope this works, because I'm not sure. So if you go back and hit play, it's kind of not working. It's working, but already the deformation shows, and I don't want that. I don't know why it's doing that. Like, okay, let me select the effector and change the deformation to like 0. Let's see if I hit play. I think the points actually is working. Yeah, you can see I think the point is rather working. Yeah, perfect. So you see when it comes on, boom, and now it gives this dent, right? Like it's sort of interacting. So you can actually even scale it down further if you want. You can scale your main spline as well a little bit down if you want, right? Depending on how you want it to interact and everything, right? So basically from here going, it's just your own thing, playing around to get the kind of feel that you want, right? So basically this is how you do all of this. Now in the original video that I showed, you can see this particular object was bent and it was coming in. So let's actually do that as well. So I'll go back and I don't know why it's always already showing. If I select the plane and come to the effector, shouldn't be. But see, let's for now see how we will do the bend in there. So with the bend, how to bend this object is simple. So all we have to do is to come into our deformers. I'll select the bend deformer, make it a child of our cloth object, right? And now let's say fit to parent. We click on fit to parent and it will fit to our parent. But we change the orientation to, let's do it X, positive X. And now we click fit to parent for it to fit. And now if I bend it, you can see, oh, it's actually bending the other way around. So let's do it negative X and fit to parent. And I can see it's bending our object, right? Let me change the display to shading with that line. So you can see it's bending it. It's too, the bend is too wide, so let's reduce the size of the bend, right? The height of it, something like that. Let's move it back, make it even more smaller, something like that, right? So we want it to be parented to this particular plane effector, the one that drives or draws on our thread, this particular linear field. We want our bend to be parented to it. But if we move it from under the cloth and parent it to it so that it move together, it means it wouldn't affect our object, right? So let's bring it back. So we will use a constraint, and this is a bit complicated. I've actually not done a video on this, but what you have to do is to right click on this bend, come into our rigging tags, and you can see you have constraint tags. So what the constraint tag will give us access to, we can choose transform, right? And if merely you choose transform, we have this tab and it will tell us which object do we want to target. So we want to target the linear field. So what I'll do is I'll uncheck rotation and I'll leave on just positional, right? So the object we want to target is this linear field. So I'll drag and drop in this linear field, and that means that this our bend deformer will always follow the position of this linear field. All right, so I'll select the constraint once again, and so our target is done, but you can see it's too close to it. You can see where the linear field is and the bend deformer, it's different. So we can select the constraint. You can see we have offset here, and now we can offset our bend. So if I choose Y, you can see we can offset it a little bit. So this is how we want it. All right. So now if we hit play, you can see it comes down, and now so we can even add, let's offset it a little bit, and now you can even exaggerate our bend a little bit more. And now if I hit play, comes on, comes on, comes on, and it's quite nice, right? So that's basically everything that I did, right? And because we are using effectors as deformer, I can simply also use the delay effector. So I can simply come to my effectors, I'll choose delay, make it a child of everything, and now I'll change the mode in the deformer tab. I'll change the mode to, I think, points, right? What's the, yeah, I think points. Then I'll come into the parameter, make sure select the effector rather, and I'll change the mode from blend to spring, so that will add a little bit of springiness in it. So if I hit play and see, adds a bit of springiness in it, and now it's interacting with our plane and it's writing on as we want. So this is actually very simple and actually interesting to do. So this is how you do something like this using the stitch on effect. You can see comes on, comes on, comes on, right? And from here going, you basically have to add your materials and lights. Now let's see how we will use it to affect, like write on some sort of text or anything, right? So let me actually take off this plane, and now I don't want to all of this. Let's use it to in fact, let's create a whole new, let me, you know what, I'll I'll take this connect object. In fact, I'll take the whole sweep, edit, copy, and create a new scene. Edit, I'll paste it here, right? So we have everything already done. it's connected and everything, but we need Effector to bring it on. Remember, right? If I change it to play, you can see it, everything is working, right? But we want it to be at the edges of our text, so I'll create a plain spline text. I'll actually type in something like, let's put in the X, and I'll change the plane to XZ like that, middle align it, and probably make it a bit bold. So it's going to be, this is going to be the object that we want our stitch to affect. So what we will do is that we will create a clonal object again, clone, and we'll make our sweep a child of the clone, right? And now with the text spline, we have to make it actually a geometry. So I'll create an extrude. I'll make the text spline a child of this extrude, and the offset, I'll set it to 0, so it will be flat geometry. And I'll change the display so that we see what's happening. You can see in the geometry there's nothing in the middle, but at the edges there's always some segments, right? So I'll select the plane and the clone. I'll change the mode from grid to object, and the object you want to clone on is basically, of course, the extrude. So I'll drag and drop in the extrude. If you go for it, you can see you have all of this going on. Let's disable the sweep for now. You can see we have a lot of them going on. Now let's select the clone once again, change the mode. It's set to surface distribution. I'll set it to edge, right? And you'll be cloning at the edges of our text, but there's so many edges going on here. So what I'll do is I'll select the text spline, come to the intermediate point which is set to adaptive, and I'll set it to uniform, right? And I'll reduce it to, like, say 1, but let's reduce it a bit more, right? And now it should be good. If I select the plane, it should be good. A lot is happening, but oh, actually, so what we are doing is that we have too many clones happening in a lot of clones, so it's not supposed to be in another clone actually. So let me bring out the sweep actually and delete this clone. We don't need this clone, but the first clone that we had, right, this particular clone under the sweep that we had, we will select it and change the mode from linear to object, right? And the object we want to use is the extrude. So I'll drag and drop in the extrude, right, and set the mode from edge. Select the clone, the distribution from surface to edge, right? And you can see it's cloning on every edge of our text. Now I'll adjust it a bit. For now, you can see it's lying flat like that. So I'll select the clone, come to its transform, and let's rotate it. But I think no. So I'll rotate it 90 degrees here and 90 here. I'll set the rotation P to 0, and you can see now it's at the edges of our text, right? But it's too big. So first of all, let's select the clone, and let's kill the X a bit, something like that. And now we should be good a bit. So basically, we've created how the whole thing works on a text, right? Let's go ahead and hide the text. You don't want to see it. But I can see we've created the stitch. But if we hit play, everything comes on the same way. So let's go ahead and do what we did. You select the cloner, come to objects, and in the transform mode, you set it to fix, because you are going to use Effector to control it. And I'll select the clone again, come to my effectors, I'll choose plane, and in the parameter, I'll set it to our uncheck position, and I'll set the time offset to 21. Remember, right? Everything is on, but it doesn't play. So we want to use Effector to affect it. So I'll select the plane in the linear in the field, and I'll add. In this time, you can use linear field, right? So if I'll scale it down, I can use linear field to make it come on and stuff like that, right? But if you want it to come on sequentially, you probably will have to use a box field. So I'll delete this one, and now instead of linear field, I'll create a box field or even a spherical field, any of them that you think will be fine, I'll actually create it. Let me use a sphere, right? And I'll make it small and see. So it's affecting just this part. See, where it comes from. You can't even make it a little bit more smaller. And now it's affecting only this part, so it comes on and goes on like that. But we want it to trace this particular spline, right? The text spline, I want it to trace it because it's hidden. If I bring it, you want it to follow the path of this text spline, right? So with that, you right click on the spherical field. In animation tags, you add align to spline, and the spline you want to align to is the text. So I select the align to spline and drag and drop in into the text, and you can see if now I select the align to spline and animate it, you can see it's following it, right? But it comes and it goes, it doesn't stay on. So we have to set our keyframe. So at frame C0, we want it something like set a keyframe at frame 0, and let's increase this one as well. And at frame 300, I play it back. So something like that. Let's say it's fine. And if you hit play, and see it comes on, animate it, but it goes. But we want it to stay. That we don't want it to go. So now we select the plane effector, come to the fields on top of the spherical field. We come down here and you can see we have this modify layers. We will choose decay, right? And the decay sort of slowly fades your animation off. But if you set it to 100%, it will not fade off. So it will stay whenever after the animation has happened. So if I hit play now, you can see it comes on, and now it don't go again. So now I can go ahead and hide my text, and I can see my S is writing on, like it's stitching on basically. So this is how you do something like this with a text, right? I hope this one was actually useful and you've learned some technique out of it. So you can do a lot of interesting stuff with this particular effect and play around with the animation and all of that. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned a thing or two. If there's something you don't understand, you can actually DM me on Instagram and ask question, or you can write it under the comments. But please kindly like and subscribe to the channel, and hope you gain something from this video. I'll see you in the next one.